Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship My Money Share as we get ready for a rousing 14 game Tuesday slate. Adam, how are you doing these days, my friend?
Doing good. Looking forward to a full 14 gamer coming off the 8-game slate on Monday. Should be pretty fun.
It will be intriguing. We have some teams that are getting real familiar with each other. I heard on the telecast today that the Washington Nationals have played 46 games, and this is their 10th meeting with the New York Mets. We know that J.A. Happ is going against the Orioles for the fourth time. This was Corbin's fourth time against the Mets. We need to break out. Where's some more interleague? Where's some more interdivision rivalries here? Adam, it feels like the same matchup over and over. What is this, the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, right.
All right, so we're going to try something a tweak a little bit different. We're going to go game by game, but we're just focusing on pitchers, but we're going to give our thoughts, yay or nay, whether we like them or not. What we have seen is oftentimes so much changes here, either with weather or with lineups, etc., that this will give us a chance to kind of give context to each of the pitchers, which we definitely want to do. And then, of course, we'll have more information for the bats as lineups come out. In the morning, you will get the DFS strategy show that will be at 9:30 over there on the Osmo YouTube channel. You will get the deep dive article that's behind the paywall. That is going to be from Adam. You'll get spotlight hitters and stacks. That's a freebie. You get that one from me. Josh Engelman's going to do spotlight pitchers. That'll be in front of the paywall, and all sorts of other goodness. We've got the Osmo stack tool behind the paywall. That's turning in quickly to everybody's favorite new thing. But if you have not yet signed up for Osmo, we'll give you a couple chances on how to do that throughout the show. First one is the easiest. Just use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, and you will get 50% off any 1 month package. And of course, we do have weekly packages as well if you want to just jump on in. Adam, we're going to jump on in here with the game. There's an early one here. It's a 6-10. Nobody is including it. It's Chris Bassett, Trevor Bauer. Both those guys are intriguing pitchers. We would have more interest in them, of course, if they were on our slate. But we're going to start off here with the Yankees and Baltimore. We have Domingo Germán going against David Hess. We have a 5.7 implied run total here for the Yankees, and we have a 3.9% implied run total for the Orioles. I'm assuming this is going to be a thumbs up for Domingo Germán. He is a tick shy of 5 figures on DraftKings, and he is 10,000 even on FanDuel, 19.5 on Fantasy Draft, and a rousing $50 there on Yahoo. Let's start off with him going against your Orioles, who, by the way, not as bad as they were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, kind of middle of the pack in terms of strikeouts, but I think that Germán does have really good stuff. He has struck out 26% of hitters so far this season, 3.85 xFIP. Really good stuff. Gets swings and misses. Ranks 21st out of all starters that have thrown at least 300 pitches in called strike plus swinging strike percentage. The issue and the reason that I might not get to tons is just that we do have a lot of really good pitching on this slate. Despite having a 26% strikeout percentage, he still comes in behind 5 other starting pitchers. So, obviously a little bit tough to get there, especially when one of those pitchers is $6,700 on DraftKings. So obviously we'll talk about him, but it's a good spot for him. No question about that. But it's a good spot for several other pitchers that are really good too.
All right. Now, I was on to Andrew Kashner a little bit here on Monday night, and that is going okay so far. My whole hope was he was not going to get destroyed I think he was 5,500, 5,600. It allowed me to get some of the more spendy Texas and Houston hitters. Now I ended up with 12.5%, so it wasn't a ton, but that was a conscious decision by me. I will be making no such conscious decision on the 14-game slate to go with David Hess here. So in this one, I'm assuming we're going to target some of the Yankees bats. If we were looking for a batter profile too that had the better chance of treating him like, say, a piñata, what would that be? Lefties, I guess?
He's struggled more with righties this year, actually. Kind of a similar profile as far as the numbers go to Andrew Kashner. 16.2% strikeout percentage against righties compared to 23.5% against lefties. 402 ISO allowed the righties compared to 197 to lefties. His slider, which is a pitch that he had some success with last season, has been absolute trash this season, allowing a 338 expected ISO, a 372 expected WOBA, 13.3% swinging strike percentage is down about 3.5% from last year. So he's really just shown nothing that gets righties out, and that obviously is an issue when you go against this Yankees team that has tons of right-handed power.
All right. David Hess on the season has allowed 14 home runs. This will be the fourth time he's going against the Yankees. How many of those 14 home runs have gone to the Yankees?
You said it's what number against the
14 Yankees? On the season, and this will be his fourth. He's faced them 3 times.
8.
Close. 7. Half his home runs have gone to the Yankees in 13 innings. So we know where we're landing on this one. Moving along to our next one, we've got Zach Eflin coming in at 35 on Yahoo. He is at 41. Jose Quintana is at 41 there for the Cubbies going against Philadelphia. We don't have an implied run total yet because this game is going to be in Chicago, and we generally don't get those till the next day because the wind can shift. Right now we have the wind coming in from right between 10 and 15 miles an hour, and it is 52 degrees projected for a game time temperature. Do either of these pitchers intrigue you amongst the 28 we're going to be looking at?
Not particularly. I think that Eflin is pretty good, but it's not the best matchup against Chicago. Not a great strikeout matchup, an above average offense, and we don't know yet what the weather looks like. It is expected to be in the low 50s. So if we get a wind game where it's blowing in, then obviously you would bump up both of these pitchers. But if we assume that it's kind of just like a neutral wind, there's pitchers I'd rather get to than Eflin. There's certainly pitchers I'd rather get to than Quintana, who has been pretty decent this year, but not the most favorable matchup against the right-handed heavy Philadelphia lineup either.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, they're going to have Scott Kingery and Maikel Franco as the 7th and 8th hitter. So tough one there. Eflin checking in at 9,400 and Quintana at 7,900 there on DK. On FanDuel, Eflin is 91, Quintana 77. So it's kind of in the upper reaches there for what we want to look at. Anything else that you would like to point out with those guys?
No, I don't think so.
All right, this one gets a little more interesting. We have Herman Marquez going against Chris Archer. This will be the Colorado Rockies in Pittsburgh. This one is the Rockies carrying a 3.9 implied run total, and the Pirates a 3.7. So one of our lower totals of the slate here. We know that the Rockies, of course, not as good on the road, but they're actually markedly worse. Generally a bottom 3 or 4 lineup when we use factors that neutralize the ballpark effect boost from Coors Field. And then on the other side, we have the Pirates, who just aren't really that scary of a lineup, but we have seen Josh Bell really morph into a good hitter. We know at some point Gregory Polanco and Starling Marte are going to start doing well. Marte in particular has actually been getting some stolen bases, so he is not completely without value here. Are you siding with Marquez and Archer, or looking to one of the pitchers here? One of the hitting teams here?
I'm siding with Marquez for sure. Archer is a bit more questionable. He has not been particularly good this season. He had some issues last season. He's someone that the stuff is just much better than his results have been for a while now. And it makes it pretty scary, but at the same time, it is a reasonable $8,000 price tag on DraftKings. The Rockies aren't the most imposing lineup, although it is getting a lot better. Now that they've gotten healthier and they are playing the correct players, you're getting more at-bats for Raimel Tapia, which makes the lineup a little bit deeper. You have a healthy David Dahl. You have Brendan Rodgers up from AAA now. It's a much deeper lineup than when you were getting Garrett Hampson and, God knows who else in there. So not as appealing a matchup for Archer. But Marquez, affordably priced. He's 9,200 on DraftKings. He gets a huge park shift going into PNC. A lot of lefties for the Pirates, which isn't exactly ideal. He has struck out 19.4% this season, 22% last season. The strikeout percentage is always higher for him against right-handed hitters. So that's not perfect. But I just think, obviously a really good pitcher facing a, middle-of-the-road Pirates offense.
Yep. On FanDuel, Marquez 82, Archer 71. On DK, of course, that's bumped up a little higher. Marquez at 92 and Archer at 80. So we'll have to see what happens. We should, well, on FanDuel, there will be a lot of cheap discounted, or some would say mispriced bats. DraftKings might be a little different, but there should be enough one-off value that you can get to Marquez and another person in the upper eights, lower nines, putting $18,000 to $20,000 towards your two pitchers there. On to our next game here, we have the Boston Red Sox going into Toronto, taking on the Blue Jays. You have Eduardo Rodriguez going against the Jays. The Jays have a 4.2 implied run total here. You've got Marcus Stroman going to be presenting some, hopefully, ground balls to the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox have a 4.9 implied run total here. It's always difficult to know what to do with Eduardo Rodriguez. He is someone that can be confounding from time to time. He does have good stuff. He also appears to have some mental lapses on the mound, which causes him to get into jams, and then it's a crapshoot if he's able to work out of them or not. I would lean towards him just because the Blue Jays have been just so poor this season, Adam. And I just don't see a lot of help on the horizon until, Vladimir Guerrero really starts turning it around. Grichuk picks it up a little bit. Justin Smoke. They just can't all seem to get to be on the same page. And they're striking out the 8th most against lefties this year at just shy of 25% with their active roster. So I am leaning towards Eduardo Rodriguez on my short list of pitchers today.
Yeah, I like him too. I do think that Guerrero has fully turned it around. I think he's fully in stud mode now. But, still you get Smoke with less power from the right side. You get, basically Guerrero and Grichuk being the two right-handed power bats that you're concerned about. And Rodriguez has just been excellent against, everyone, but especially right-handed hitters this year, holding them to a .099 ISO, a 13.5% strikeout percentage, 280 expected WOBA, and he struck out just shy of 26%. So I do like Rodriguez a lot. The issue just comes down to the same thing that we talked about with Domingo Germán and with Germán Marquez. You have a lot of really good pitching on this slate, and I'm not sure how much I'll be able to prioritize Rodriguez over some of the other arms, but I do think that any Rodriguez that you get to is clearly fine because there are strikeouts in this lineup, and he has seemingly made some strides this year, throwing his changeup almost 24% of the time to righties with a 24% swinging strike percentage, which is 6 percentage points higher than last season. That's obviously made a really big difference. So the price tag's a little bit higher than I would like just because he does tend to run up his pitch count a bit, and it will cost him a little bit in terms of going deep into the game. But I do think there's strikeouts for him to get here.
All right. Now, where we do want to target him is Yahoo. Hey, shout out to Yahoo, one of the presenting sponsors of many shows here on Awesemo. We've got Eduardo Rodriguez coming in at 43, Adam. So that is one of the best prices there from a point per dollar rate. The guys around him in his tier would be Quintana, Turnbull, and Zach Wheeler. You've got to go up $6 to get to both Germáns, Domingo and Marquez. You've got to go higher than that to get up to Kershaw, and then 50% more off his prices where you get to Justin Verlander. So I think he is a nice option to look at there on Yahoo. Anything you want to mention about Stroman as we start to look for a little bit of discounted opportunity or some differentiation plays? It is a tough one, of course, going against the Bo Sox.
No, just a brutal matchup. Okay. Not a high strikeout pitcher. If I'm going to take a risk on a cheap pitcher, it's not going to be Stroman.
All right, well, let's continue along here. Reminder, this has been kind of fun so far. We've got several more games to go. Give us a little feedback if you like this format here, but it's an organized way for us to get through the 14 games that we are looking at. Caleb Smith, Spencer Turnbull here. We've got Miami heading up to Detroit to take on the Tigers. 3.8 implied run total for both sides here. Caleb Smith, 10,400 on DK. That is a lofty price point, but his strikeouts have just been off the charts so far, Adam. He's someone I've been picking up over the last few weeks in some of my season-long leagues. I am not dropping him. He's still only about 60% owned. I am not letting anybody else get a shot at him. Tigers striking out 26% of the time. That is the 6th most against lefties this year. What would you like to do with Caleb Smith? Just from let's not worry about dollars at the moment.
I would like to get as much as I possibly can into my lineups here.
Is he going to be potentially your number one guy to focus on? Your
Yeah.
number one desire, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, him and Verlander at the top. If you can find the money for Verlander, obviously it's Verlander, but Caleb Smith's been absolutely phenomenal, and I fully buy into it. I got onto him pretty early last year when he started pitching, started pitching well for Miami, and everything backs up what he's doing. He struck out 37.5% of right-handed hitters so far this season. Overall, he has struck out 35.2% of hitters, which leads the slate by a ton. For comparison, Justin Verlander is at 31.1% this year. His walk percentage is only 7.7%, which is an improvement. Strikeout minus walk percentage is at 27.5%, which, again, is far and away the best on the slate. His xFIP is 2.94, best on the slate. If you look at called strike plus swinging strike percentage, he's 8th out of all pitchers that have thrown at least 300, all starting pitchers that have thrown at least 300 pitches this season, number 1 on the slate. If you look at a new stat that I've been looking at, and I've referenced a couple of times, that is basically a better version of xFIP. I don't have those numbers in front of me at the moment, but I know he was really high in those last I looked at them. Basically, everything is backing up Caleb Smith being an excellent pitcher, getting a ton of swinging strikes on every pitch that he throws. There's nothing to dislike about him, and Detroit obviously has plenty of strikeouts in their lineup, so he has that going for him as well. I think that he's just clearly a top play here.
All right. On the other side, Spencer Turnbull gets to go against the Miami Marlins. Potentially, they might be a little better now that the pitcher's not hitting and they're getting to put someone in there as the DH. Thoughts on Turnbull?
I think he's pretty good. I think that it's a good spot. I think that he's certainly in the conversation for your cheap SP2. Like, I would definitely rather roster him than Marcus Stroman at a similar price point. If you look at the guys around him, I think that he stands out as a guy that I'll probably get to quite a bit.
All right, let's get on to our next game here. We've got Eric Fetty Wap against Zach Wheeler. I really don't want to go against the Nationals, particularly now that they have Trey Turner back. We do know that it is an institutional failure for the Mets to allow stolen bases, but you've got Turner and Adam Eaton up there at the top of the order. You got Victor Robles, who is going to be, well behind, but still in the mix for potential rookie of the year, or at least that's what they keep liking to say on the Nationals telecast. But with Soto there, Rendon there, this is a tougher matchup. I don't really want to go with either of these guys, but I gotta ask, Adam, the Mets more or less turning into the hashtag LOL Mets, led by newcomer Robbie Cano, who had not one but 2 base running gaffes this weekend, and I see he now says that doesn't matter because he's a leader who leads by example. Robbie, I don't think those words, when they're put together, mean what you think they mean. What do you want to do here with Fetty and or Zach Wheeler?
I have no interest in Fetty. We can, I think, cross him off at 7K. Wheeler is in the same category as Eduardo Rodriguez, where I think he's a really good pitcher. I think that one thing that he has going in his favor is that he tends to go a bit deeper into games than Rodriguez does. He really doesn't have any sort of limit on how many pitches they'll let him throw. It's a dangerous matchup against the Nationals, and when you have this many pitching options on the slate, that'll keep my exposure to him down a bit. But I do think that he's just a better pitcher than $9,000.
All right. That, I think, is a fair assessment. Let me go see what he is here. He is on, he's 45 on Yahoo, so that's right there with Rodriguez. And then on, he is the 6th most expensive pitcher on FanDuel at 9,200. Again, right next to Eduardo Rodriguez. So good call out or comparison for that one.
One number to point out on him is that ERA indicator that I mentioned. It's PCRA, which there was an article on Twitter that I read, and it had all the math to back it up. And basically, it's a more predictive version of xFIP that is also sticky from year to year. So there's certainly indications that it's a really good stat to be looking at. And his ERA, Wheeler's ERA this year is 4.85. His PCRA is 3.55, which is 30th out of 127 qualified starters. So, not bad shape there. But again, just kind of a tough matchup and a lot of guys that I think are in a little bit better spots on this slate.
Continuing on with the last of the 7-10 games, we have the Dodgers in Tampa Bay taking on the Rays. Clayton Kershaw coming in at one of the more expensive pitchers. He's not priced as Clayton effing Kershaw, but he isn't really pitching like that anymore. He's still been somewhat reasonable. Tampa Bay been pretty darn good on offense. I really don't think I want to go to Kershaw here, but I did want to call out his recent pitch counts. This is most recent and then reverse chronological order. 98, 100, 95, 101, 92. So that part is not too shabby. This is still, even though it's a decent pitching environment there in Tropicana Field, not really somewhere where I'd want to go on such a large slate with so many options. How are you feeling about Kershaw? And then it looks like there is an opener here for Tampa. Is that Hunter Wood?
Yeah.
All right. Any interest in Hunter Wood or Kershaw?
Definitely not in Hunter Wood and not really in Kershaw either, just because of the slate. It is a really good park. There are strikeouts in the Tampa Bay lineup, but I just don't think Kershaw, I still think he's good, but I just don't think he's as good, obviously, as he was in the past. But even as, a lot of the other pitchers on this slate, he ranks 38th in PCRA this year. He ranks 41st in called strike plus swinging strike percentage out of all starters that have thrown at least 300 pitches. He's been, fine, but just not great. He's struck out 23.8% of hitters this year. He's not the DFS ace that he was in the past, and I think that on this slate we have a lot of guys that either give you a higher ceiling or are a lot less expensive. So I don't see myself getting to a lot of Kershaw here.
All right. Update here on Hunter Wood. He came off the DL with a sore shoulder. He did throw 10 pitches against the Yankees on Saturday. That was his last game action. I would suspect he will be in the mix for one, potentially 2 innings. He does on April 8th and April 18th. He did go 43 pitches on the 8th for 3 innings and 38 pitches for 2 innings on the 18th. However, that was a month ago and there was a DL stint in between. So 20-ish pitches seems about reasonable to expect from that. So not really anybody we're going to want to consider. Continuing along here, our Sloan 740 game here before we get into those in the 8 o'clock hour. We've got the Cincinnati Reds, Gio Gonzalez. Gonzalez, it's been okay. Not great, but he's been okay. He is 7,400 on DraftKings, so that has him in our conversation as someone that gives us a little bit of wiggle room. He's 33 on DK. On the other side, we have Sonny Gray, who I know you will have plenty of thoughts about. Tough matchup here for him going against Milwaukee. He is 36 on Yahoo. He is 67 on DK. These guys come into the conversation because of their price, more so, I believe, than the matchup and in this hitting environment, because the Reds are carrying a 4.1 implied run total. The Brew Crew, 4.6. But they do have some upside with these guys, although there is admittedly a fair amount of downside here. But it's priced into the matchups priced in, I think, Adam.
Yeah, I, no surprise, really like the $6,700 DraftKings price tag on Sonny Gray. It's a brutal matchup against Milwaukee. It's not a favorable park for pitchers. There's no real question about that. But he's just better than $6,700, and it's a talent play that is pretty clearly underpriced. People think that he's not good for whatever reason, but if you look at his numbers this year on this slate, he ranks fourth in strikeout percentage, behind only Caleb Smith, Justin Verlander, and Zach Wheeler at 26.2%. He has a 3.47 xFIP. His PCRA is 29th, which is just ahead of Zach Wheeler for comparison. 3 spots behind Patrick Corbin, 7 spots behind German Marquez. His actual ERA is 3/4 of a point higher than his PCRA. His called strike plus swing strike percentage is 35th out of pitchers that have thrown at least 300 pitches, so not in bad company there. He's just got a lot going for him as far as talent goes, and I think that even though the matchup is brutal, that's all priced in here. People will stay away because they don't think he's good and because the ballpark and the matchup is so scary. So I do like Sonny Gray in tournaments.
All right. Gio Gonzalez, any consideration from him? We have more of the better hitters here for the Reds are coming from the right side of the plate.
I think I would rather just either get the $400 for Spencer Turnbull or save $700 and get to Sonny.
All right, let's continue on because this one's going to be fun. Tommy Milone. Wow, I didn't realize he was with my Seattle Mariners. Why did I not realize that? Well, the 32-year-old has just made 8 starts in AAA Tacoma. I wouldn't think that's what we would expect from a veteran pitcher such as him, but he is on his 6th team. So this will be his sixth major league team that he will play for when he starts in Texas against the Rangers. I really, really, really do not want to play him. However, Adam, 5,700 and the Rangers are going to be putting out a lot, potentially a lot of lefties. Is this fancy play syndrome to go with Mion, who was relatively solid with a sub-4 ERA in the Pacific Coast League there with his 8 starts?
Yeah, I have less than zero interest there.
Okay.
He hasn't even been particularly good against lefties. If you go back to 2016, he's thrown 561 pitches to left-handed hitters. He's allowed a 214 ISO, 8.4% swinging strike percentage. Just I don't know. He's not good.
That's And I'm looking at his player card. He's had 2 different stints. He started out with the Nationals, and that's who he played for last year. Oh boy, you would think maybe I just don't remember bad things, but God, nice handoff from the Nationals to the Mariners. On the other side, we do have Lance Lynn. He's coming in at 6,800. We know that he is pretty good against same-handed hitters. However, the Mariners do have a nice mix of lefties and righties. Their righties are actually both sides of the plate. Their hitters are good against opposite and same-handed pitchers. They've constructed a nice lineup here. Not exactly a ton of household names, but it's been working for them. Any interest at all in Lance Lynn, sort of as the counterpart to Sonny Gray?
I mean, if you don't like Sonny Gray, you can go there, but it's a lineup full of right-handed hitters or predominantly right-handed hitters, especially the power bats, which is good for Lynn. He has been, pretty good in general this season. He's done a better job of limiting lefties as well, just a 127 ISO so far. Against righties, he's actually allowed a 196 ISO, but 157 expected ISO, 11.4% swinging strike percentage. I think that he's fine, but it's a bad ballpark, and he's just, in my opinion, nowhere near as good a pitcher as Sonny Gray is. So I would rather just take the risky matchup with Sonny Gray than with Lance Lynn.
All right, now I've got to go look. You said how many home runs do you think? And he has as many as I thought he did. How many home runs does Omar Narvaez have, the catcher for the Mariners?
7.
7. That's not too shabby. And Vogelbach, he's got some power. And we're about out of power for the lefties on the Mariners. Damn it. I made your point for you there. Damn it. Continuing along here, Dylan Covey. 5,800 against the Astros. No thank you. On the other side, Justin Verlander, damn near doubled the salary at 11,300. He is the top guy on FanDuel at 12,000, and he is also the most expensive option on Yahoo at 61. Great matchup for him. He has been pretty good, but there is a lot. That's a healthy chunk on all sides of our salary cap that we would be earmarking towards Verlander. Give us the highs and lows of that approach.
He's obviously a really, really good pitcher. He has a great matchup against the White Sox. The issue for me is, for one, there's a chance that he just gets ownership because of his name. That people kind of look at Caleb Smith and say, oh, he's too expensive, and then they just go to Verlander. But he's just significantly he's more expensive than Smith, and Smith's been the better strikeout pitcher this year. He's been frankly the better pitcher overall this year. Verlander obviously has the track record, but when you talk about almost a $2,000 discount on FanDuel, a $10 discount on Yahoo, almost $1,000 discount on DraftKings, I would rather go to Caleb Smith because he gives you just as much upside for a lower price tag.
All right. Since the beginning of 2017, Verlander 34% strikeout rate to lefties, 27% to righties. He has 77 in his 64 innings thus far this year. Yes, he has given up 11 home runs, but he has a 2.38 ERA, a 0.79 WHIP, so he's not even allowing a full base runner per inning. Those are some amazing numbers, Adam. If we look at Chicago going against righties, they strike out 24.5% of the time. That is sixth in the league. But you are right. The discount getting there for Caleb Smith is going to make this a fun one. Now, that's one of the best things that Osmo has there behind the paywall is the projected, I like to call it popularity, but the ownership for you guys that use that term more colloquially. We have pointed out and built a lot of strategy for baseball by going against what the masses are doing because this is such a highly variant sport. And this is something that can be quite helpful. So while we can easily agree that these are the two best pitchers on the slate, our decision will be heavily influenced by where the rest of the masses are going because either one could fail, they could both do well, they could both fail, etc. But if the popularity is 2-1 on one of these guys as opposed to the other, then we want the guy that's less popular. Is that a simple way of saying it, Adam?
Yeah.
Okay.
And all things equal, I'd rather have Caleb Smith.
Okay. There we go. Because you don't like old guys. There you go. Yeah, I see it. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling a little ageism here, Adam. A little ageism. We've got some weather out there in St. Louis where Homer Bailey and Michael Wacha will be squaring off, which is a little bit unfortunate. So we're going to have to wait and see what that's going to look like. 70-degree first pitch temperature. Looks like about 80% chance of rain. But Michael Wacha at 6,600 going against the Kansas City Royals, who are striking out more than some of their recent iterations. They are middle of the pack with a 23.4%. Oops, that's against lefties. They are middle of the pack with a 21.8% strikeout rate against righties, which over 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they were usually bottom three in the 15 to 18% strikeout rate. So this is a much different team. They have some speed, but they're going to lose the DH. And Wacha is not a bad pitcher, particularly at this price point. Assuming the game goes because of weather, where does he fit in the mix there for you versus Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn?
I would expect that he's the most popular of the group because right now Kansas City only has a 3.9 implied run total. And, if the weather cooperates, I think people will kind of flock to that. And I think it's fine. I mean, Kansas City has some good hitters in their lineup, but like you said, there also are some strikeouts. Wacha has struck out about 20% of hitters this year. He's also walked 13.5%. And with how much speed is on this Kansas City team, walking guys obviously can be a problem. His xFIP is 4.96. His PCRA is 5.14, so it's actually worse than his 4.93 ERA. He hasn't been good. He's been actually downright terrible. And if people are going to go there just because Kansas City has a little bit lower implied run total, then I would absolutely just love to get Sonny Gray at lower ownership because he's just a significantly better pitcher than Michael Wacha is.
All right. I really don't have any interest in Homer Bailey going against the Cardinals. I picked my spots with Homer Bailey this year. I got a couple good starts from him as an SP2. Some of that was factoring weather and particular opposing lineups. I don't want to go against the Cardinals. They have a 5.2 implied run total. The only way I see this happening would be on the 3-game 8 o'clock slate on the 2-pitcher sites. But I would put him above Dylan Covey and Tommy Milone. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a brutal matchup against a bunch of righties that hit fastballs well. Bailey has a 401 expected WOBA allowed to righties this year, throwing his fastball 43% of the time. His splitter is good. I mean, he has one pitch that gets swinging strikes if he can, get ahead in counts, but just a really dangerous matchup and not that good of a pitcher.
All right, we've got half a dozen pitchers left. Let's continue along here. Quick reminder, if you follow me on Twitter at EMACDFS, check out my pinned tweet. We are giving away one more round here of the free 1 month of all access premium Awesemo content. Now, two things you got to do this. One, you need to go to that pinned tweet on my account, click on the hyperlink there, and that will take you to the Awesemo DK League. Join that league because that is where I'm going to be posting the links to these contests. Tuesday's contest will be me playing Fred Van Elite or Fred Van Not So Elite. God, he's horrible, Adam. He's got the yips. He can't shoot anymore. It's a mess. But I'm going to be playing him. You guys, I'm paying the rake for you there. Winner of this contest, it's $1. Winner of the contest gets a free 1 month premium package of Awesemo content. The catch, you do have to have an Awesemo avatar and win the contest, but that's not too much to ask. It's about a $60 value there. Otherwise, it's 50 people. It's $1. Pays out normally like the normal DK contest. So definitely check that out. Go to my pinned tweet and have some fun, literally at my expense. Adam, 6 pitchers to go. This one is in San Francisco. We've got Julio Teheran going against Sean Anderson. What? Sean Anderson? I went to high school with Sean Anderson. He actually held the Class A high school 1 mile record, 4 minutes and 16 seconds, I believe, set in 1989. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, he was actually lived.
Congratulations on being in high school before I was born, Enoch.
There you go. It was, look, ageism again. It's on the record now. This will be going in your file. I know the person who kind of does some of the Awesemo HR here. Know that person very well. But in any event, what do you think about Teheran finally getting out of SunTrust Park into Oracle Park, where he does not have to deal with the power pack group of lefties outside of Brandon Belt? Feels like a good spot because Brandon Crawford basically has like a 100 isolated power over the last season and a half. He is not effective at all anymore.
It is a good spot, great park, not a scary offense. I think it's just the wrong slate and price point for Teheran. When you just look at talent, you have Teheran at 23.9% strikeout percentage, but an 11.1% walk percentage, xFIP around 4.5, and he's in the same. He's priced at the same price point as guys like Eduardo Rodriguez, Zach Wheeler, Marquez, more expensive than Turnbull against Miami. It's just not somewhere that I think I'm going to get to because of the other options on the slate.
All right. Let's see here. Yeah, we're not gonna go with Sean Anderson, but
Why?
Okay. What do you know? What do we know about Sean Anderson? Because he's old now. You've just pointed out that his heyday was before you were born.
Yeah. So at AAA this year, 35 innings pitched and 7 starts. So not expecting him to go deep. Went 5 innings in his first start with the Giants, but he did strike out 25.2% of hitters at AAA. Steamer projects 7.7 strikeouts per 9, a low walk rate, which is nice to see. It's just I don't like taking guys against Atlanta, and I think that obviously there are some risks here because we don't expect him to go deep. I would rather roster Sonny Gray, but you do get a pitcher here in San Francisco at a cheap price point when your other options outside of, you have Gray against Milwaukee, you have Michael Wacha, who sucks, you have Lance Lynn against the Mariners in Texas. I don't think that Anderson's the craziest SP2 if you're just trying to get some of your, turn some of your Sonny Gray or Spencer Turnbull exposure into someone else.
Okay, with kind of the approach that hopefully all of them don't blow up and you have the right combination that can break free from the pack and move up the leaderboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Anderson is 27 on Yahoo. He is on FanDuel. He is 6,400, and he checks in at a nice price of 6,900 there on DK. 4 more to go, 2 games. Michael Pineda going against Trevor Cahill. Adam, what happened to everybody makes money on Trevor Cahill Day? Are those days ever coming back?
There are some trends for him that I kind of like. I'm not getting there against Minnesota. They're just too good, and no thank you. But looking at his on Brooks Baseball, looking at his release point, which was something I pointed out earlier this year, was much different. In previous years, his curveball and his fastball were thrown from basically the exact same spot. This year, he had a very large discrepancy between the two. And my hypothesis, is basically that hitters are just having an easy time picking up what he's throwing, and that's why his swinging strike percentage has gone down, and he's been very ineffective. Over his more recent starts, the release point's starting to get closer together. Still not where you would expect it to be compared to other seasons, but maybe trending in the right direction, but this isn't a spot where I'm going to find out how, if it's getting better.
Now, would that fall under the common phrase of tipping your pitches?
So it can. I think normally that refers more to something that you're doing like in your windup or before.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought as well. But I don't know what the right phrase of it is because it's. I mean, you're so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. But when you're doing the stuff in your windup, they have a better chance. It's like, all right, this is coming. When it's a release point, it's like, okay, they got about what 0.3 seconds instead of maybe 1 second.
Yeah, but when you talk about like a curveball and a fastball, especially like Cahill throws that knuckle curve that you want it to be coming out of like the same window as your fastball, so that hitters pick it up later. If your fastball is coming out of a window, let's say hypothetically just directly over your shoulder, and your curveball is coming out of a window 4 inches to the right of that, the hitter is basically looking into that window to try and pick up the ball. And so he notices when it's coming out of a different spot and it just comes out of your hand differently. So, if you immediately can tell that a pitch is a curveball instead of a fastball, you're going to have a lot of success.
All right. Thank you. That was a much better explanation than I ever would have come up with. Michael Pineda going against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, who have kind of been on a bit of a tear with Tommy La Stella out of nowhere. Shohei Ohtani is hitting quite well. They strike out literally the lowest against righties or lefties. Pineda, a bit of a mess these days, but he is 6,500. There is a 3-game late slate here. I think that's about the only time we would really want to look at him, just because of the lack of strikeouts there for the Angels, and that's about the only thing that goes in Michael Pineda's favor, if he even gets the strikeouts. But he is 6,500. Angels do have a 4.9 implied run total. It's 62 degrees here at first pitch. There is an 8 to 10 mile an hour breeze going out to right field. Thoughts on Pineda before we finish this off?
No, thank you. Not enough strikeouts in the Angels lineup. The price tag obviously is appealing. The only way that I get to Pineda, like if you completely disagree with me on Sonny Gray, but you also hate Michael Wacha and Lance Lynn and Sean Anderson, that's how you get to Pineda, just as a price point play. But for me, I'm just taking my chances on Sonny Gray because I don't think that the matchup is really much worse than any of these other matchups. And I think he's just the superior pitcher. I would rather take some hitters against him, in particular Shohei Ohtani, who continues to be criminally underpriced on DraftKings at 4,200. Mike Trout is 5,600. That's, where he should be. So those two guys in particular, but then you also get some cheap Angels bats that you can use to fill out stacks.
All right, final game of the night. I believe we're saving one of your pitchers for this one, potentially two. Zach Greinke and Matt Strahm squaring off. We have this game in San Diego. It is going to be 60 degrees at first pitch. Looks like there is a cross breeze from third base to first base. It's coming in at 12 to 14 miles an hour, so please do keep an eye on that just in case it switches one way or the other. What do you want to do with our final pair of pitchers, Adam?
Probably not a whole lot. I think they're both fine. I'm not really looking to target against them, especially Greinke, obviously. A really high strikeout spot for Greinke. He has struck out 25.5% of hitters this year. He's been excellent, 3.17 xFIP. He has just been a really good pitcher, 13th in PCRA. Called strike plus swinging strike percentage is high as well. He ranks, actually not as high as I thought. He comes in at 39th in called strike plus swinging strike percentage, which is, decent, but not great. But really the thing that it comes down to for me is, while he does have a high strikeout matchup against San Diego, he doesn't have the same strikeout stuff that Caleb Smith has at the same price point. And Smith's in a favorable matchup as well. So if I'm getting to that price point, I would rather go to Smith. And then with Matt Strahm, you have a pitcher who is, decent, but basically average. He's expensive. He's not got a great matchup against an Arizona team that has a lot of right-handed power with Adam Jones, Ketel Marte, Escobar, Christian Walker, Wilmer Flores. It's basically a right-handed lineup, and it's a pretty scary spot for him. So I don't see myself getting too much of Strahm.
All right. I think I like Strahm a little bit more than you. Very valid points across the board. Again, he has, 430 batters faced at the professional level. He is striking out a combined 23%, so really no great shakes there. Allowing reasonable, or not giving up too much power, but again, small sample size, decent ballpark for this. I like the weather. Those are all in his favor. A lot of it's going to depend on what happens here with the Arizona lineup. I see that Wilmer Flores is carrying the questionable tag. So then it'll depend if Ahmed or Murphy or whomever else is in the bottom of the lineup. Those guys are good against lefties. Ketel Marte is solid against lefties, and Christian Walker has a lot of power. So you're absolutely right. Not a ton of positives, but factoring in, 3.7 implied run total for Arizona with the weather, with the ballpark, and with the context of everybody else, I think he will probably be my number 5 or 6 pitcher, and that's on the 2 pitcher sides. So that means he'll probably be on 15 to 20% of my teams. So that is just something I do want to call out there. Any final thoughts before we get on out of here?
No, I think it looks like a pretty wide open, fun slate. As always in tournaments, don't be afraid to get away from the public. But on 14-game slates, you don't have to. The public, the ownership just doesn't get concentrated quite as much. So it can be fun because you can kind of just play whatever you want to play.
The popularity is diffused, as I like to say. With that, we're getting on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS on Twitter. I am at EmacDFS. It is Osmo_COM. Check out my pinned tweet. With that, gamers, good luck.